Mary Lehammer here from Twin Cities PBS, TPT's Almanac Public Affairs show, with a little more on the story behind this week's story. I want to tell you why we're doing this. In this era of distrust and misinformation, I think it's a good idea to explain journalism, how and why we are doing the stories that we are doing. I'm working here on Substack and working across 7 different social media platforms, going to you, trying to get a little under the hood and explain how we're creating these stories. So I do want you to subscribe and give us feedback. I'm definitely listening to the feedback, and you'll hear some of that later. But the big story this week in Minnesota politics and beyond is the election, and the biggest story in our area is historic election of the first person of color as St. Paul mayor. And this is a surprise because Mayor-elect State Representative Cowley Herr got into this race just a few months ago. It's a very short campaign in modern times. And interesting context, I was traveling overseas recently and somebody came up to me in Switzerland and said, well, the presidential election, it'll be coming up soon again, right? Just a year or two, and America will be maybe electing a new president. It's fast, right? And it was interesting to explain to someone overseas, no, 4-year terms for presidents, for governors. And I think this almost felt a little European in how quick. It almost felt like a snap election in St. Paul, and not everyone really saw this upset victory of incumbent Melvin Carter coming. So very fast election. Couple of the themes, definitely, I think nationally as well as locally, affordability and the economy. St. Paul, a lot of people are feeling like it's not affordable there. There's a lot of tax concerns, there's public safety concerns. So definitely hearing a feeling that people didn't think everything was all right in St. Paul. And so definitely going for a change, and a change in a particularly tumultuous cycle here in Minnesota. We've been through so much with the assassination, of course, of a political leader here, and so many special elections. I'm going to go through those a little bit just to give you a sense, because that's the focus of my story, is really what looks like to be a record in the number of special elections necessary within about a year here in Minnesota. It all goes all the way back to State Senator Kelly Morrison running for Congress, and that created a special election in the state Senate. Then you had a Senate Republican charged with solicitation of a minor during the legislative session, then a resignation. Then a Senate Democrat convicted of burglary. Eventually, after her conviction, she resigned, a special election. Then you had a Senate Republican who passed away suddenly, another special election. And then, of course, the really horrific, traumatizing assassination of former Speaker Melissa Hortman in the State House. There's been a special election to replace her since then. And then the most recent 2 special elections that will be necessary. That's because a House DFLer, as we just mentioned, Cowley Herr, is becoming St. Paul mayor. And then also a House DFLer is moving to the state Senate. We'll be talking to her next week and have that scheduled. So it looks like there could be as many, if you're counting, as many as 8 special elections needed in about a 1-year period, definitely surpassing the previous record. The previous record, I had been researching this because I kind of felt this coming and knew we were getting close. Previous record was 6, and that was back in 1994. Another year in Minnesota politics full of change and turmoil. And we had a lot of people moving offices, going to higher office just like this year. Some context there in 1994, where the previous record of 6 special elections was set. 94, you had Bill Luther going from the legislature to Congress. You had Joanne Benson going from the state Senate to become lieutenant governor, and lots of more change. We'll give you a sense of that story now, and I'll talk to you again after.
I'm proud to stand before you today as the first Asian and the first woman mayor-elect to the
State Representative Cowley Herr makes history.
Sounds like you think we should do more of the things that we're doing.
Absolutely. You should actually do something.
Defeating the incumbent she once worked for in a short campaign in the capital city she represents in the legislature.
My parents would have wanted nothing more than to be here with us today, but I know that they're watching from home. And when I think about what my parents did, the things that they fought to get us to this country, and I think about the sacrifices that they made and what they did so that their children could have a better life than them.
It was a big night for immigrants and Democrats across the country. And Representative Herr isn't the only House member moving to higher office. Representative Amanda Hemmingson Yeager won the special election to replace DFL Nicole Mitchell, who was convicted of burglary. She was backed by the National Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee.
We swept, as Democrats, everything last night, and more specifically at our ballot level, we protected nearly every target on our map. And in the lead up to last night's election, we'd already protected 7 majorities in 2025. And the earthquake winds last night reaffirmed that voters rebuke GOP extremism and that the affordability crisis remains the issue that is on voters' mind.
That win holds the 1-seat majority for Democrats in the state Senate. Republicans retained the rural seat in Wright County with Michael Holstrom's victory.
I think that the men in our communities have a very understated role of being leaders in their household and leaders and showing that, you know, there's something more important than my own personal life and pushing that outward. We do a lot of work to try to inspire the men in our community to be to show examples through that.
With 2 House Democrats winning election, that means 2 more special elections will be necessary, and that should set a new record. It also gives Republican House Speaker Lisa Dameth technically a 2-vote advantage the very same week she announced her challenge of Governor Tim Walz.
I'm Lisa Dameth, and I'm running for governor because Minnesota is worth fighting for. I know together that we can build a stronger Minnesota for today and for generations to come. And I look forward to getting to work.
Glad she's running. I always appreciate anybody who's willing to put themselves out there, and I think they'll work that out on the other side, and we'll see who comes out next August.
Bills will still have to be bipartisan in the House because 68 votes are required to pass.
We don't need any more one-size-fits-all mandates across the state. We need to make sure that there's local control within our cities, within our school districts, and our businesses, making this a place to thrive.
We should actually dig in on the answer to this question because this gets to the crux of the issues that we actually deal with.
Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, record turnout resulted in a long battle against State Senator Omar Fateh for incumbent Mayor Jacob Fry to eventually prevail.
I am humbled by the trust and support that we have received from the people of the city of Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a great city that is on the rise. And from right now till my final seconds in office, I will work tirelessly to do everything possible to make sure that Minneapolis is a place where everyone, regardless of your background or where you grew up, can live a brilliant life in an affordable home in a safe neighborhood.
We just saw there incumbent Mayor Jacob Fry pulling off the win there in Minneapolis, opposite of the other Twin City, St. Paul, where the incumbent lost. Minneapolis voters returned incumbent Mayor Jacob Fry, and it took a little while because it is ranked choice voting, and that can take some time to count. It is not a fast process, and advocates definitely say it gives you options because, as you might know, you can rank, second and third choice, but it takes a while for those others to drop off and for the winner to be declared. So that took some time. Also, this race had national interest really beginning to end, and it really started when State Senator Omar Fateh challenged the incumbent mayor and appeared to get the endorsement at a convention. Later, that endorsement was pulled back, but immediately parallels to New York City, and ultimately the candidate who won there, a lot of parallels there with an immigrant, a Muslim, a young new face, but that did not work, and Omar Fateh did not win here in Minnesota. He had a close ally in Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and originally the way Fateh got to office was upsetting an incumbent, a little bit like the situation in New York. Omar Fateh ran against State Senator Jeff Hayden. Hayden was in leadership in the state Senate, so that was no small feat knocking him off, was a part of big legislation with Uber and Lyft drivers, and definitely faced some scrutiny and some very difficult questions and coverage about, different conflicts and controversies and scandals that he was linked to, perhaps held him back. Hard to say for sure exactly what happened there in Minneapolis. But the other thing we're watching is all this turmoil in the same week and the election when House Speaker Lisa Demuth launched her campaign for governor. And the same week, she technically gets probably a temporary 2-seat majority. Now, some folks take issue with the term majority because it's not enough to pass a bill. You cannot pass a bill with the amount of votes that she has. You need 68 votes. She will only have 67 votes. That's not enough to pass a bill, but it is enough to elect a leader. And she was elected with 67 votes, and she's not the first Speaker of the House elected with less than the 68 votes needed to pass a bill. A lot of this ended up in courts, and we have recent court decisions on this. So I guess we can call it a 2-vote advantage temporarily until special elections are called to replace those 2 House members that are elevating to higher office. But again, Republicans do not have enough votes to pass any bills on their own. Still has to be bipartisan, any legislation that happens in special session or when regular session starts in February. Another thing, I love your feedback and want to hear this, and got feedback that maybe I'm saying Governor Tim Walz running for an unprecedented 3rd term. Wondered if I had to say unprecedented every time. And the context I give is it is difficult. No one has done it before. And I watched the last Democrat who tried to run for a 3rd term. I watched that very closely. That was Governor Rudy Perpich. And my father was a reporter for the Associated Press at the time. And, this was decades ago. And it was an era of, phone calls and late nights working and looking through physical notebooks. And I remember my dad and watching Governor Perpich really struggle in that campaign and ultimately lose an attempt at a 3rd term. And that is a campaign where the Democrat lost to the Republican Party, and a Republican Party that saw lots of scandal. We had candidate John Grunseth accused of swimming naked in a pool with teenage girls and leave the race not long before the election. That's how State Auditor Arnie Carlson got on the ballot and then went on to win 2 terms. The Republican beat the Democrat, who was going for a 3rd term, and he went on to win 2 terms. And he was followed by Independence Party third-party Governor Jesse Ventura, who was then followed by Republican Tim Pawlenty, who also won 2 terms. So the last time a Democrat tried to win that unprecedented 3rd term in Minnesota, it resulted in 2 terms of a Republican, 1 term of an independent, and 2 terms of a Republican. So Minnesota still kind of looks like a pretty safe DFL, that's our unique party, Democratic state, but I think a 3rd term is not easy, and that is my context on it, and I'll continue to cover that all season long. Let me know your ideas, and please subscribe. Thank you.